Good evening and welcome to Library Lovers with May and Linnell and the Libby app. Boy, have we got a fantastic show for you tonight. Now, not only do we have one of my very favourite authors, and possibly yours too, judging from the fact that she's sold over 3 million books, we have rural crime author extraordinaire Jane Harper with us tonight. We've also got illustrator, co-author and digital special effects guru, Pritchard, and Brisbane Libraries on board for this very extra special edition of Library Lovers. Now, if that sounds good to you, and it certainly does to me, then grab yourself a cup of tea and settle in for a fabulous night. I'm your host, May Linnell. I'm a journalist, the author of 4 rural romance novels with Alan Unwin, and I'm passionate about books, baking, gardening, and libraries. Tonight's program is brought to you by Overdrive and the Libby app, plus your local library, bringing you digital content so that you can access audiobooks, magazines and ebooks, all from the comfort of your own electronic devices. I love hearing where you're tuning in from every month as well. So please tell me what you're reading, any questions that you have from our guests. You can just put your comments in the chat function and we'll try and get to them later. We'll have time after each guest for a couple of quick questions, and any that we don't get a chance to get onto tonight, we can certainly forward to our guests and they can get back to you about them later. Now, this is a spoiler-free zone. So for the people that haven't read the books that we're talking about tonight, please be sure that you don't spoil any plot points in the chat function or in your questions, but let's dive into it. Now, coming up first is award-winning, internationally best-selling author Jane Harper. Welcome to Library Lovers, Jane. We are so thrilled to have you on the show tonight. Beautiful.
Oh, sorry, there I am. Hello.
Here we go. Hello. We've got you, Jane.
Thank you so much for having me.
No worries. Now, Jane, your rural crime novel, The Dry, kicked off Australia's obsession with outback crime and rural noir, some people might say. And Jane has delighted readers with 5 more extremely successful novels, Force of Nature, The Lost Man and the Survivors, and her new book, Exiles, was released by Pan Macmillan last month. It really is such a treat to have you here with us today, Jane. Look, to start off, can you tell us where you're talking to us from?
Yeah, sure. So I'm in Melbourne, where I live. Specifically, I'm at home. It's actually kind of bed and bath time in our house around now. So I'm hiding in the spare room. To be honest, it's not hugely glamorous, but it's at least it's got a door I can shut and keep everybody else away.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I'm coming to you today from Southwest Victoria, and we have had the most glorious sunshine today. It's a real treat, isn't it, to have that spring weather coming through?
Yeah, it is, and especially where so much of the state is really suffering with the floods and things. So yeah, we've been very lucky. It sounds like where you live as well. So yeah, that's yeah, it's good to be yeah, it's lucky that we haven't been affected by that as well.
Yeah, goes out to the different people that are impacted by that. Now, Jane, your new book, Exiles, immediately shot to the top of the bestseller list, and it's held very firmly in that #1 spot. Firstly, huge congratulations. And secondly, can you tell us how you celebrate successes like that? Is it champagne? Do you have a big party? Do you buy something special? Because I know that some of the authors, Natasha Lester, for instance, she buys herself something special from Tiffany that reminds her of each book. Is there anything that you have a tradition with your books when they hit the bestseller charts?
You know, I don't, and you've made me think that I should actually, because it's absolutely is something we're celebrating, and it's so lovely to see kind of readers and and library borrowers and booksellers embrace the book. So I mean, it absolutely is a moment worth marking. I have to say, normally when the book comes out, I'm on kind of a book tour, so I'm not at home. I'm kind of usually in a hotel somewhere about to do an event that night. So that's kind of what happened again this year. But you've made me think I really should actually get that champagne on ice, I think.
I think so. And you have done some very extensive touring as well. I've seen you all over the place. You've been a very busy lady.
Yeah, and it's been great. I mean, it's so good because last time, especially when The Survivors, the last book came out, I was in lockdown in Melbourne, as a lot of people were, and so I didn't get a chance to even leave the house, and I never even saw the book, in a library or in the bookshops until I think like November or something, like months later. So it was a very kind of solitary experience. So it was really, I think, extra special this time to kind of be able to get out and actually, meet people and sort of just sort of, I don't know, just see the book in the wild. So I think that's a really important moment as an author. You would know when you actually see it out, that's when it kind of becomes real, I think.
It does. And then I'm sure that when you're out and about, that you'll just see people reading it on trains, on buses, just sitting down at the beach in the summertime. You'll see lots of people curled up with this good book, I'm sure.
I hope so. I actually rarely see, sometimes I can sort of count on one hand the amount of times I've seen people actually. I've seen like a couple of times on a tram. I saw someone actually at the hotel where I was staying when the book came out, reading it by the pool, and I was like so tempted to kind of, I don't know. I don't even know what I would have said though. Are you enjoying it? I mean, like, what if they, it puts them in the spot a bit. So, but it is really fun. The occasions when I kind of do see someone reading it is this. It's so like surreal, but yeah, it's great.
Well, if it's any indication, I've spoken to quite a few people in the last few weeks and said, oh, we've got Jane coming on Library Lovers. And so many people said, oh, I've just bought myself a copy, or I've just started, or I've just finished it. And I'm not sure if it's only because I have lots of friends that are very book loving and love a good read, but it certainly happens to be the book on everyone's lips when I'm speaking about books. So I think that kind of, is a huge credit to the fact that you write such wonderful books.
Oh, that's really kind. Oh, thank you. And say thanks to your friends as well. That's lovely.
Now, as I said before, it is a spoiler-free zone here on Library Lovers, but I can say that I particularly liked the very satisfying ending of Exiles. And I know you're a really dedicated plotter as well. And as someone who has just handed in a first draft manuscript, and really wishing I'd done a bit more plotting when I'd done that. Can you please share with us some of your wisdom when it comes to plotting?
Oh God, yeah! Congratulations on completing your first draft, by the way. I know that's kind of a big moment, isn't it, in like the process. So yeah, well done for reaching that. I think, yeah, look, for me, I mean, I've always leaned towards being a planner. I just personally find it, it allows me to be more creative, because planning the book in advance, it allows me to test out ideas without committing to the time and effort it requires to write the words. So, I can try out an idea in planning form and see, is this the best route, or is there something better? And I can kind of, test quite a lot of different, routes for the book to take, because you only have a limited amount of creative energy. And I think if, it's better for me, I find, to save that until I'm actually sure that the plan is exactly where it needs to be and I know what's going to happen. And then I can really focus it on that point where it really matters.
I love that. And so in terms of an actual physical planning document, is that colourful cards or post-it notes stuck all over your walls, or is that a notebook, or is that an Excel spreadsheet or an actual Word document? What does it look like?
Yeah, it's not, I'm not a hugely visual person, so it's very computer based. So there's two different forms that really help me. One is initially when I'm kind of very first thinking about that initial kind of core of the idea, I don't even really go to the computer. I just think about it as I go around my day-to-day life, and every time I have an idea, I put it in the notes app on my phone, and I write down every single thing, whether it's a good idea or a bad idea, it goes in the app. And then when I've sort of got to the point where I feel like I've got quite a good idea of the kind of beginning, middle, end, and some characters, I need to start committing it to paper, then I will take those notes and I put them in a Word document in sort of the best order I can. It might be by character, it might be by chronological, if I can sort of make that work, and that will then expose some of the gaps, and then I try and sort of fill those gaps. So it's all very much on the Word document, and then I would spend a long time, like months and months, with that Word document, just fleshing it out and expanding until I've sort of got a chapter by chapter plan by the end.
I love it. And I'm going to try and take some of that down so that it can make the process a little bit easier. We have lots of people who are very keen writers that tune into Library Lovers too. So I'm sure there'll be some people, trying to use that information to their advantage too.
Well, I think, I also would sort of add as well that there is no really right way to do this. I mean, there's so many successful authors. I mean, you've published books, not by that method, and so many authors don't find planning works for them. They do enjoy that sort of spontaneity. I don't know, but I think, I mean, that is what always works for me. But I think really whatever helps you get the words on a page is absolutely the right way to pursue the writing.
Yeah, absolutely. I fully agree with that too, Jane. Now, I'm a keen baker and a green thumb, and I always like to share what's happening in my kitchen and my garden and during Library Lovers. I'd love to know what's happening in your kitchen or your garden, Jane.
Yeah, so we're actually having renovation works down in the garden at the moment, so there's not much happening there. But in my kitchen, what's always happening is I've got my trusty teapot here that my friend Pamela gave me as a birthday present, because I always have tea on the go, especially when I'm writing. I think it's really, I don't know, I sort of mainline it, it's just something that kind of helps me. And I drink it, actually, it's a little bit sad. I was debating with the shows, but I drink from this mug my parents made, which I don't know if you can see it, but they made me a mug of the dry. So
that is fantastic.
So I sort of drink it from this. It's quite a good mug, and it sort of gets me in the headspace a little bit. So those are kind of my writing rituals as far as I have them.
I like that. Well, I've been baking from a new book. It's coming out by Amelia Jackson, and it's called First Cream the Butter and Sugar. And it is a beautiful, glorious book. It's out in November, but Amelia was one of the MasterChef winners that came back recently, but they've just got some really, really beautiful illustrations and whatnot. And I made these brownies, and she had them in a checkerboard pattern. So it's just simply every second slice has got icing sugar dust on it. But I tell you what, my children are very excited about the second that we finish Library Lovers and the camera goes off, those brownies will be their dessert. So they're all excited about that. And that's been great. Now, if people wanted to ask a question of Jane or of Pritchard or of Nadia tonight, you just need to pop your little questions in the chat function. If you have chat enabled in your settings on Zoom, sometimes it can be a little bit glitchy, but otherwise you can direct message them through. So the other question I wanted to ask is libraries. They're always really special to writers. Jane, can you tell us something that makes libraries special to you, whether it's from your time as an author or a mother or as a little girl?
Yeah, I mean, I have a really active relationship with the libraries at the moment. I mean, I always have, but particularly now, now I have kids. So, I mean, I have to say one of my favorite things is what I currently do now, which is every Monday, me and my son Ted, who is 2, we go to the story time at Albert Park Library. So big shout out to Monica, who runs, I have to say, the best story time I've ever been to. And I've been to quite a lot of these things. So 10 and 11 a.m. Mondays at Albert Park, she just absolutely engages the kids. They love it. We do so like fun stories, and some of the parachute work, which is a lovely sort of treat at the end. And it's such a kind of lovely morning. It's a great way to start the week. And I think the reason I do it is because I really want my children to have really positive associations with that. And I mean, it's such a great way to kind of, because he thinks it's fun. It is fun. Like, it's fun for me, it's fun for him. And I hope that will be something that he will kind of carry with him as he gets older.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic, setting up those beautiful memories and associations with books and libraries and fun things to do with mum. That's lovely. Now, back when I was considering segueing from journalism to fiction, I mainlined lots of podcasts, and one of the very fantastic pieces of advice that I received early on was from yourself, Jane. And you were talking about studying, and it was just a prompt that I needed to sign up for a Write Your First Draft course. Now, for the other writers that are listening today that are a bit nervous about, putting money towards studying the craft of fiction, or perhaps they feel like it's something they should instinctively know, especially if they've worked with words, can you please share that lovely piece of advice that you gave back years and years ago about investing in your craft?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the longer version of this answer is, I think probably is the TEDx talk I think you're referring to, which is about a 10-minute talk. And I kind of talk about sort of the process behind creativity, and how there's a lot of skills you can take from your everyday job. We all have skills that will help us in writing, because my experience is that writing is a skill like any other skill. And it's things like playing the piano or learning to sew or learning to dance, and it's not something that is realistic to expect that just because you love it, and maybe you've even worked with it in a different format, that it's completely not only acceptable, but I think advisable to try and hone that skill and accept that there will be a learning process. And you know, so for me, that came in a form because I remember writing that, wanting to write a debut novel, and it's such a scary place to be because it really is like a mountain to climb, and, you know, being able to break it down and get a little bit of, you know, advice or help or motivation in any way that works for you is, you know, is worth pursuing. So for me, that took the form. I did a short online course, which was great, but I think any online course, you know, would have done the same thing, because what it gave me was that external kind of deadline and a little bit of like, you know, even if it was artificial pressure, it was that expectation that I would submit my chapters when I was expected to, and be working on this novel. And I didn't know at the time, I felt like, I don't know if I can write a novel, but I know I can do my homework. And that was kind of the sort of the help that I got with that. But I think, you know, and it's, I mean, I'm sure you would have found this too, that when, you know, writing, it is a developed skill. And each time, me and my whole planning process and the way I approach the books and everything, every single time you learn something new. And the great thing is you get to take that with you to future books. So, you know, as hard as it is, especially that first time out, it will never be that hard again, because you will gain those skills. So just give yourself the time to, you know, and give yourself permission to work through it and know that you can get better at it.
Yeah, I think that is really important, because it is a long process, but if you've got those little bits of those deadlines and that self-belief and someone else cheering you on as well from the sidelines, really does make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and that's right. And I mean, I think it's sort of, it is really daunting committing to doing that, so that big time and effort is taken for a novel. But I mean, the rewards are so, if it's something you wanted for a long time, you know, I mean, you know yourself, I mean, the rewards of finishing that first manuscript is just, it's life-changing. I mean, it's still one of my favorite moments in the whole process, that day when I kind of finished my first draft.
Those words, the end, for the fact that we've got, you know, 100,000 words in every book, those last two that you write, and they don't even make it into the finished published copy of the book, but they are so important, aren't they, to an author? Yeah,
absolutely.
Beautiful. Now we've got lots of questions flooding through. There's plenty of people listening from Beachport in South Australia, which is wonderful. We'll get to a couple of the questions in a moment. I've got a couple more. Firstly, Jane, I'd love to know, do you have an Australian book recommendation that you think people might be interested in picking up and reading?
Yeah, I do. I actually, this one is I love this one. It's Sally Hepworth. This is not the cover, the Australian cover. The Australian book is out. This is a proof cover. So it doesn't look like this, but Sally Hepworth, The Soulmates. And it's out any day. I think it's out this week, actually. And it is so good. If you know Sally Hepworth, she writes these really cool, fun, twisty kind of domestic noir, you know, like readable with like just the right amount of kind of grit and great tension, really page turning. I love this one. It was about a family that moved to a clifftop house, and quite quickly they realized that it's this sounds worse than it is, it's quite a popular suicide spot, and the husband gets involved with talking these people down, and he manages to save almost all of them except for one. And it's about the kind of relationship that, you know, that sort of unravels from there. It was great. So The Soulmate by Sally Hepworth is my, check it out. It's coming out like any day now.
That's fantastic. I've loved Sally's books, and I know that she's doing a lot of touring as well, and some of her events have also sold out. So people should get onto her website and have a look if they want to try and catch her in person. Now, I think we've got one more question before we go to audience questions. The Dry was absolutely brilliant on the big screen. I loved seeing the movie, and I got quite excited. I got shh by the audience because I was saying to my friends, look, there's Jane, there she is over there. That's her walking behind the funeral ceremony. Now, what was it like being an extra on the movie set? And will you be on the next movie, Force of Nature, is being turned onto the big screen too?
Firstly, thank you so much for spotting me, because that is so rare. Because it was, how was it? It was long, but no, it was great fun. It was so fun. So I got to go on the set for The Drive for 2 days. You know, see the cast and meet, you know, Eric Bana himself, which is, you know, always a great day. And then sort of we got to be, me and some of my friends and family got to be in it. You know, we definitely filmed for 2 days. It's like 4 seconds, as you know. So yeah, you can't look down or you miss us. But it was really good. And then and Force of Nature, the sequel, is the filming has finished. It was filmed in Victoria over winter, and they're into the editing process now. So I'm not in this one, unfortunately. We tried to make it work. Just the timing, it was over school holidays, and there weren't that many scenes with out the core, a lot of scenes just had the core cast. So despite best efforts, I'm not in this one, but I did get to go to sets and kind of again meet my best friend Eric Banner, and see it looks good. The setting was beautiful and they seemed really happy with what they were getting. So I haven't seen any footage from it yet, but fingers crossed. It's the same team behind the drive, so I'm really hopeful. They did such a great, beautiful job with that. I love that adaptation. So I'm really optimistic about this one.
Excellent. I can't wait to see it on the big screen. Now, I've hogged you for long enough. We're going to get to some of these wonderful audience questions. The first person, Calabrese, asks, Jane, what made you decide on the South Australian setting for Exiles? And have you visited the SA wine region? I know the answer to this one, but I look forward to hearing it from you.
Yeah, I absolutely visited. My gosh, try and stop me. I mean, one of the best parts is research trips, and I have to say this was one of the best research trips. So the setting was just gorgeous to write about for Exiles, and part of the reason. I mean, it was a few things. So sort of the creative reason was I really wanted a place that had, like with any mystery, Exiles has a few sort of dark threads running through, but it's got a lot of light in this novel as well. And I wanted a place that really, reflected that. Falk he's a small town guy at heart. I wanted a setting that kind of reflected that sort of aspect of his personality. And also he's reunited in this novel with Greg Grayco, who we met in The Dry, whose family is originally from South Australia. So that was kind of sort of turned my head in that direction initially. But I loved that research trip. It was so fun. It was such a beautiful setting to kind of bring to the page.
Absolutely. And speaking of Falk, Aaron Falk, played by Eric Banner in the movie, but an absolute superstar in 3 of your books. How are you feeling about farewelling him, Jane? Donna wants to know, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that would love to know. It's the last Aaron Falk book. Is it quite sad? Are you relieved, or is it all those feelings?
Oh, I'm sad, really. I mean, but I'm sort of comfortable with the decision. But I mean, it's he's been with me since page 1 of book 1. I love writing about him, and it's not. And for me, I went into Exiles knowing this was going to be the final book for him. And the reason for that is that I feel like in fiction, endings are as important as beginnings. And I really wanted to give him an ending that was considered and thought out and right for his character. I didn't just want to kind of, I think as an author, I think it's really important to kind of put aside any other, pressures to continue past the point where you really know as the author, that's when to say when. And, he deserves a good considered ending, and the entire Exiles was entirely built around him. So it was lovely because I got to kind of, it was kind of like my big sort of 300-page farewell letter to him. Knowing it's the last one, you can leave everything on the field. Everything was in there. And I'm really pleased with how it kind of came together. So I wanted to, it was exactly the sort of book I kind of hoped it would be when I first thought of it.
I think it's a wonderful farewell. And for those people that haven't yet read it, they'll be very pleased with Aaron's ending. Deb has given a bit of a shout out to Monica, the librarian at Alban Park. When her kids were young 10 years ago, she said she does a fantastic job of it, as well as a side gig in stand-up comedy, which is exciting.
Oh, we've got to know that. That's good to know.
That would make for a very good children's entertainer and keeping their attention. I can see why she'd be popular.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. She's very good. So you can keep the attention of 3-year-olds. I think you can keep the attention of anybody. So
absolutely, a very tough crowd. We've got a question from Lou, who's an aspiring author in Mudgee, and she says, 2 of my favourite writers. Well, that's lovely. Thank you, Lou. She's currently reading Denzian, which is by James Mackenzie Watson, a fantastic new rural crime voice, isn't he? She wants to know what else you're reading and your reading choices when you're drafting your own work, as in, do you read in that genre still?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And the answer is no, not really. I actually, I think the biggest downsides of becoming an author, I don't know if you find this, but my reading has kind of falls off a cliff when I'm writing. I find it very hard to keep my story in my head and then engage in the way I need to with a book. So I find myself kind of going back to sort of to my old favorites, books I've read before. And quite specifically, I try and read depending on what I'm trying to do in the book at the time, I try and read authors that do something really well that I'm trying to emulate. So for Exiles, two people I read a lot of. Again, I've read them before, so it was sort of revisiting, but I read a lot of Margaret Atwood because I think her sort of crispness of language was something it just always kind of, sort of makes me want to do better. And another one was Marian Keyes, who, has just writes these beautiful kind of relationships. And I think the kind of warmth she injects in relationships while still kind of tackling quite gritty subjects is something I've really always admired, because that is not easy to do.
No, Marian Keyes does it so well. She is one of my very firm favourites. So I'm with you on that one, Jane. Lovely. Now we have got a few more questions, but what we'll do is we'll copy them out and hopefully we'll be able to get back to you, get those questions to you a little bit later. But Jane, our time is up with you tonight. We have been so delighted to have you on Library Lovers. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you to everybody involved in the Library Network for giving so much to, authors, but also readers. As an avid user myself, I mean, I don't know where I would be without them. It's given me so much pleasure over the years, and now I can see my children evolving. So thank you so much. It's such a fabulous resource. So yeah, shout out to everybody who makes it possible.
Wonderful. Well, that's been Jane Harper. Her new book, Exiles, is out now with Pan Macmillan in all good bookstores and libraries, and also available in the digital format to borrow through the Libby app. And you can find her on social media at Jane Harper Author. She also has a website which has all her details on where you can purchase these fabulous books. I'm very thrilled to have had her as our guest. So thank you everyone for your questions. Now get your questions ready on the topic of children's fiction, because we next up have Richard Pritchard. He is the co-author and the illustrator of Wheeler, the Kuru Warrior. Welcome to Library Lovers, Rich.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, now Richard works as a visual effects artist. He's designed and crafted 3D characters and environments for high-end commercials, animated films and feature films, including Happy Feet, #1 and 2, The Great Gatsby and Mad Max Road Fury. Richard's also recently written his first illustrated chapter book for kids with co-author Jordan Gould, which is a fantastic release. My children have read it and absolutely loved it. It was released by Allen & Unwin's children's imprint in June. You're in Southwest Victoria, just like me, Rich. Can you tell us, are you in your home office tonight, or are you in a studio?
I am in my home office where it was written and illustrated.
Wonderful. Now, Wheeler was the 4th best, biggest selling Australian junior fiction book in Australia on its release. Did you expect it coming out firing like that, especially considering Ando has that market so tightly sewn up?
Well, Ando and his book Wolfgirl was our template. Like, we love that book. So we knew that we were basically chasing after him. The illustrations, the story, that was our benchmark. We had to match Ando, and because I work in the creative industry, I had a lot of peers looking at my work, so there was a lot of pressure, not just Ando, but more my own professional colleagues looking at the art and the story that I've written, so I had to, it was pressure.
Well, it was a resounding success, and as I said, my children read it and absolutely loved it as well. Why do you think it's made such an impact on children, Rich?
That's a good question. When I co-wrote it with the young Aboriginal man down here, with Jordan, I think because there's never been anything like it before. It's got a lot of Indigenous teaching, and I think there's a huge undercurrent of people who, love and support Indigenous culture that we've never seen before, of giving them an opportunity to voice their appreciation for culture in Australia. So I think that what we discovered was there's a huge underground love for it, and then it was really just creating something that they could connect and join with, and that's what we're seeing. That connection is happening.
And in connection, in one very special way, was Book Week, and the timing of the book coming out in June and then having Book Week in August. My children were delighted to have this fantastic ready-made character to dress up as, which was perfect. But I know they weren't the only one. And at the Book Week parade, one of the parents whose child had also dressed up as one of the Wheeler characters said, I think this Wheeler is the absolute flavour of the year this year. And I said, well, that's good. That's what we like to see.
Yeah, that was amazing. Because my kids love Book Week as well. And so even before we wrote a word, I said to Jordan and the elders, look, we're going to create this character. She's going to be part of the public. They're going to want to dress like her, you know, so you have to be happy. I don't want to make up a tribe or make up an Aboriginal. We could do that, you know, with Jordan, but it has to be authentic, has to be, you know, genuine. And so they agreed to it. And then after that, I know we designed Wheeler to make sure that her costume was able to be replicated. We didn't want it too complicated. And then we forgot about Book Week. And then all of a sudden it happened. And within a week, we got hundreds of images sent to us of parents and their kids and whole, you know, schools dressing up as the full cast of Wheeler. And that was amazing. I never expected that to happen.
Yeah, and so people can follow on and have a look if they want inspiration for next year's Book Week as well, because you had a whole Instagram page that really showcased all those photos. And as a parent, I am all for costumes that are really easy to do. So thank you very much for that. Now, for those that don't know what megafauna is, and when you pick up Wheeler, the Koori Warrior, you'll find out that megafauna is a very key part of this story. Can you explain to us, Rich, please, exactly what we're dealing with?
Yeah, well, megafauna means large animals, basically large creatures, or kind of anything that's large and alive. So we based Wheeler about 40,000 years ago for a few reasons. One, that she could have these pets were like gigantic diprotodons, which I've kind of made like guinea pigs. And, you know, that was when the Tasmanian tiger was flourishing and there were giant birds in Australia. And they're kind of like the dinosaurs of Australia sort of thing. And if you go to South Australia, you can visit the Narrabri caves and see skeletons that are in there. So it was great to marry up Indigenous culture with the megafauna, so kind of like Wheeler's pets. You know, I always say to people, you know, if you could have, you know, 20 giant kangaroos as pets or giant koalas, I think kids would want them. You know, if there's no restrictions. I know I would.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was good because I didn't have much information on that part of Australia's prehistoric animals that I could remember and quickly conjure up when my children were talking about those diprotodons and these different things. I can think what a Tyrannosaurus Rex looks like, but until the children were talking about the book and we went to the Narrabri caves, especially as well in South Australia, to have a little look. And it was fantastic to see that, you know, the 2 metre tall kangaroos and these huge, ginormous wombats. It's a lot of fun for them to explore and learn about history as well as Indigenous culture throughout the story. Now, moving on to the drawing process, Rich, how did you actually get into the special effects and illustration gig? Because that is quite a specialised field.
Yeah, well, I started off actually in magazine design when I was in New Zealand, and then I did graphic design, and which is why the book is even more pressure, because I have a print background. You know, print publishing, I know how all the mechanics of that stuff work, so I had to make it good even on that level, you know, for my past work. And then I did a lot of Photoshop work, and I thought, and then I got influenced by Lord of the Rings and seeing their digital backgrounds and they call them matte paintings. I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to make this fantastic scenery and film and animation. And so I quit my job as a graphic designer. You know, you picture this, I'm a graphic designer, creative in Sydney, living in a terrace house, everything's paid for, and then I give that all up because I want to work in the film industry. So that's what I did. I took a year off, I got married, and to my wife's shock, I said, I want to change careers and get into the film. And yeah, so I taught myself animation and 3D, and I just, self-taught animation and then got in the industry from that.
That's fantastic. Well, I was lucky enough to see you in action on the big screen because we were recently both at the Port Fairy Literary Weekend. And it was really neat to watch because you had a video on showing everyone in the audience exactly how you do these drawings, and children were calling out these random ideas for, it can have a tail like a lizard, and it can have a head like a guinea pig, and it can have a body like an echidna, and you put together this wonderful make-believe character completely, you know, on the hop using this software. And I was very impressed because I haven't really looked into software and illustrating, but the way that the particular program you were using at the time just mirror images. So you draw something and immediately it replicates it on the other side of the screen. That's fantastic. Can you explain how that works?
Yeah, so I use an iPad Pro with a stylus pen. And then the app is like $10. Almost, you know, 90% of the book was illustrated in this app, a $10 app called Procreate. And Procreate has a lot of functions to it. It's quite amazing. And the pen is great and very sensitive for artists. So it's really basic functionality of the program, just to mirror one side to another. And that just enables me to do quick sketches without having to draw the other side of it in front of an audience. So I use it for concepting stuff all the time that way.
So that's called Procreate, is it?
Yes, that's it.
Wonderful. I will be downloading that one. My children will be, you know, knocking on your door and asking you to put their drawings in a novel real soon.
Yeah. Well, when my daughter was 12, I begged her to help me with Wheeler. So she did the base coloring in of about 50 drawings in the book from Procreate.
That is fabulous.
Yeah.
Wow.
I may have bought her an iPad with Procreate with a pen, you know, for a few months prior to when I needed her, just to prep her.
I think that was a really solid investment, really.
Yeah, I think so too.
Now, speaking about books, can you give us an Aussie book recommendation, please?
Yes, I have a fantastic one. It's called Shy the Platypus. You can see it by Leslie Rees. It's out of print, but I found it online and I absolutely love it. I mean, look at these illustrations.
Oh, you have to hold it a bit. Oh no, towards.
Anyway, yeah, but it's there you go. I love it. It's just beautiful illustrations by a guy called Walter Cunningham. But Leslie Rees was a children's book author a long time ago, I think like in the 1960s, 1940s, during World War II. And he wrote these fabulous books during World War II, and this is one of them, one of many. And he was a journalist as well, so a lot of his kind of almost documentary type writing, but just beautifully researched and written and illustrated. And I saw it for the first time and I went, man, why aren't books like this? This level of illustration, you know, this watercolor level, it's just so well done. You know.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Now, as you know, when I'm not writing, I'm a keen baker and a gardener. I hear you have some very special pasta stamps in your kitchen.
Yes, these, I don't know if you can see them online, these are called Corsetti stamps. I've got two of them, two pairs here and here. And so what these are is you put a bit of pasta on the top and you get the other side of the stamp. You know how they work?
No, please.
Oh, yeah. You put a bit of pasta on it and put the stamp on it and you press it down really hard. And then you peel the stamp off and it comes off like a little round pasta disc kind of thing. And you use that in the pasta and that's how you eat it. And these, quickly tell you the story behind these. I had my 20th year wedding anniversary a couple of weeks ago. And I took my wife on a 3-week unlimited budget. Don't tell everyone that. Unlimited budget, 3 weeks in Italy, 20-year wedding anniversary. $1,000 for each year of trauma that my wife had been through with me. So we split ourselves right in. She's a mad pasta maker on Instagram, and we chased after all her Insta people that she follows. And one of them was this guy in Italy. So we tracked him down in Florence, went to his workshop, and he made these for us on the spot.
That is fantastic. Well, I tell you what, I think when I reach my 20-year wedding anniversary, perhaps I might give my husband a bit of a push in your direction.
Yes, I will encourage him.
Wonderful. Well, I've not done much pasta making, but I thought I would show some beautiful flowers from my garden. At the moment, ranunculus are flowering prolifically, and they only flower about a month and a half, but they're just so colourful and so dainty that I thought I would show them today. But yeah, there's some quite large ones, but they're a lovely little thing that's really brightening up my garden at the moment.
Wow, I need to buy some of those.
Yeah, so it's really interesting because the ranunculus have these amazing, they're called corms. And so it's a bit like a bulb, but it's a bit like a seed, but they actually look like this, like a witch's claw. And you plant them in the ground like that, and then they sprout up. But it's really interesting the way that things that can be dry and wrinkly and shriveled can come into beautiful bloom every single
Yeah, aren't they? That's incredible.
It is neat. Now, this book is going to be a series, isn't it, Rich? Can you tell us how many more books we can expect in the Wheeler series?
Well, we're planning for most likely about between 6 and 10.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, about that number. I mean, the character has to come full circle. So we've got a lot of exciting stories that we've planned.
Fantastic. Well, all the junior readers will be very happy with that. And I wanted to ask you about your local library as well, Rich. Is there anything special about your local library or a memory from libraries in your past?
There is something special about the Warrnambool Library, which is pretty amazing. The new library has just opened up last week. They've spent $22 million on it. And it does not disappoint. It is phenomenal. It is a real, I don't know what you'd say. It's a real honour to have something so amazing in Warrnambool now. There's like 3 stories high of books, play areas for kids, mothers areas at the back, gardens, play gardens for them. Huge views of the ocean from up the top, cafe.
Well, I'm going to have to drop in next time I'm in Warrnambool. That does sound wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't get my daughter out of the place.
Well, that's always good. Now, we've had Sam from Hobart sent me a message. He wanted to know, how do you come up with that inspiration for your different illustrations as well?
I do a lot of referencing. I just reference like crazy from books, movies, movie storyboards. I sometimes, in the last one, I paused a few movies and took snapshots of the composition that cinematographers have, and I just traced that and kind of figured out what angles they were going for. A lot of concept art I look at, a lot of other books, graphic novels. I just pilfer everything.
That's great. There's inspiration everywhere. I like to think that too, whether you're writing or whether you're illustrating.
Yeah, absolutely. I barely, sometimes I'll do it off my head, but I'll usually start off with a base of something else.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And lastly, before we let you go, this beautiful edition that we have here at home is a limited Kickstarter supporters edition. And now my daughters won that at the Port Fairy Literary Weekend, and they were so very delighted because they'd already read the book and now they have their own special limited edition copy. Can you tell us what the Kickstarter process was and how that helped fund the novel?
Yeah, I mean, if you're thinking about writing a book, Kickstarter is fantastic because it really tests, if your book is viable out in the market and if you have a following of it. And so we knew we wanted to write this book, and after getting the artist's permission, we knew we wanted to do a Kickstarter because it costs to get illustrations done, costs to get printed, costs to get spelling checks and all that stuff. And then we had a local foundation, the Fitz-Jones Foundation, say to us, if you start this Kickstarter, we will give you a boost. And we said, okay, well, it's got some legs, so let's do that. And so they gave us a boost donation for it. And then from there, in the end, we made about $23,000, which we were able to pay an illustrator for the initial drawings, and then spell check and other things that we got done. But it gave us leverage with publishers. It proved that people wanted the book. And then what it happened is that we had like 7 publishers interested in Wheeler without us going to everyone. So that was a massive benefit of the Kickstarter. It was great to get that.
That's a really good story, and in a really different way as well. You don't hear of too many books coming about in that process. So thank you for sharing that, you know, the way that it got off the ground and the interest that it then generated from the publishers too is just wonderful. Now we've got time for one very quick question. Julie's asking, do you spend a long time completing your novels, Rich?
Yes, we did. Jordan and I spent almost 2 years writing the first one. So we're plotters, and I love structure. So we've pretty much structured 10 books already.
Yep.
So we know exactly where every character is going over the whole process. It's going to take us years to create. But I probably overthink, and we research months and months and months of research. Every aspect of character arcs, cultural history, you know, that's a big part of it, is making sure we get the culture right. So yeah, everything we've put in there has come from some form of research to write the
Wonderful.
book.
Oh, that's great. And whereabouts can people find you online, Rich, if they want to find out more about the Wheeler books?
Yep, they can go to wheeler.com.au.
Beautiful.
Yes,
well, thank you so much for being our guest on Library Lovers tonight, Rich. It's been really lovely to chat to you about the book and your illustrations and the process that you go through putting together these fantastic children's books.
Thank you so much, Maya. It's been amazing, and we're really privileged and honoured and humbled to be here tonight among such amazing talent, such as yourself. So thank you so much.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Rich. That's been Richard Pritchard there. His novel, Wheeler, the Koori Warrior, is out now with Alan Unwin. It's in all good bookstores and libraries, and it's also available in digital format to borrow through the Libby app. So thank you very much, Rich. Now, our final guest tonight is Nadia Ruttley. Nadia has been a librarian for 14 years, and she's currently the coordinator of reading for Brisbane Libraries. Welcome to Library Lovers, Nadia.
Thanks, Maya. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Now, Nadia, you also oversee author talks and early literacy for children. You're involved in the school holiday programs, the reading clubs, book clubs, readers advisory for 33 libraries, and I love this bit, you often boast that you have the very best job in the world. That is a fantastic bio to have.
It is the best job in the world, absolutely.
Beautiful. And so you're coming to us from Brisbane tonight. Can you tell us whereabouts you are at the moment?
Yes, so I'm on Yuggera Turrbal country, which is East Brisbane. So I've got the Story Bridge, which people are probably familiar with, about 5 minutes that way. And if I lean back and look out the window, I can see our beautiful Maiwar River, the Brisbane River. So very central, but a great place to live.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, I've given a little bit of a rundown, but I'm sure I overlooked many different things about what your role at the library involves. So could you start off with a bit of a rundown of what your working day usually looks like at Brisbane Libraries?
It's, I think all library jobs are jobs where you have a lot of variety every day. So my typical day is working with my First Five Forever team, which is our early literacy program, which is fantastic. So they're the programs that Jane and Ted go to, as in the story time, baby books and rhymes, and toddler time that we do. I talk to a lot of publishers, authors. We have 350 staff here at Brisbane, so talking to our staff across our 33 branches. So it is a lot of variety in the day.
That's fantastic. I think every day is going to be different when you walk through that door, and you'd have lots of different people wanting book recommendations as well, which kind of leads us into one of the questions that I love asking is there something that you can recommend that you've been reading and enjoying recently?
Yeah, I've got a couple. So one, I couldn't get the physical copy, but I've got it. Oh, I don't know whether you can see that, but it's Magpie Murders by Anthony Horowitz. I absolutely adore anything that Anthony Horowitz writes. He is amazing. He actually does a lot of TV writing. So he writes, he's written for Midsummer Murders and Foyle's War, and Agatha Christie's Poirot. So when you read his books, they've got that kind of murder mystery feel. I do a lot of audiobooks, so his kind of read like a radio play, so they're so enjoyable to listen to. I also have, we had Dervla McTiernan come to our libraries a couple of months ago, and she was just the nicest person, so lovely. She's originally from County Cork and Ireland. My Irish side of the family is from Skibbereen, so she already got a tick for that, but she now lives in Australia. She was a lawyer and has turned to writing, so her books are fantastic. And The Ruin is the first in the Cormac Riley series, so it's the good one to start with, but I loved her writing, really fantastic. And my last one is one of our local writers, Ben Hobson, Snake Island. So I thought I'd choose Ben's book just because he's a fantastic person and he does a lot of stuff for us here at Brisbane Libraries, but he's very similar to Jane Harper. So for those of you who are listening and enjoy Jane Harper, definitely read Ben Hobson, because Snake Island is fantastic. The characterization is brilliant. When I was listening to it again, and you can taste the dust and you can feel the pain, and you know, all of his descriptive writing is just brilliant. He's got a new one coming out in February. I don't know any details because he's being very secretive about it, but we're really looking forward to it. In the meantime, if you haven't read him, read Snake Island in preparation for the February book.
And if you like a bit of Ben Hobson, you can also catch him. He has a book club that's a counterpart to Library Lovers. So he actually has a show that's on Zoom as well. So if you like the sound of that, people can certainly tune in as well using the Eventbrite link. And he'll be speaking next week with Petronella McGovern, who's got a fantastic book called The Liars. So I can't wait for that chat. I've read that book and really loved it too. He does a really good job, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's brilliant. Yeah.
And then I thought I would share what I'm reading at the moment. So I'm enjoying Eliza Henry Jones's new book. It's called Salt and Skin. It's set in Scotland. It's got a bit of witchcraft to it. It's actually giving me Hannah Kent vibes. So a little bit of burial rites theme to it, I was thinking. And I'm lucky enough to be chatting with Eliza Henry Jones in Port Fairy down here in Victoria on this weekend at Blarney Books. So I can't wait to finish this book this week and have a chat to her about it. So that's a really good one. You can also find that on the Libby app as well, the audiobook of this. So that's always pretty exciting. Now, Louise from Mudgee has also just mentioned that she was lucky enough to visit Brizzy and attend Fiona McIntosh's author talk at the Brisbane Square Library. And events like this must be a really important, inspiring part of your job, Nadia. I know that you do a lot of organising in this space.
Yeah, it is. We do a lot. So pre-COVID, we were probably doing about 150 author talks a year across our libraries, because we have so many that we've got people that travel locally to their library and people that travel across the city to see the right person. So it is a big part of my job, but it's also my favourite part of the job. Working with authors is so much fun. It's something I've loved reading since I was a child and meeting authors. So it's fantastic. And I think our Brisbane readers just love meeting authors when they come to make the, because making the trek to Brisbane for some people, it's a long way. So to come up and meet our Brisbane readers is really, really fantastic.
And you've got some fantastic people and staff that are really good to your libraries. I know I was lucky enough to come up your way a couple of years back and did an event at the Ashgrove Library, had a really lovely lady, Michelle Beasley, who's involved in your library, and she's also a huge champion for books as well. So beautiful melding of the community and authors and readers and writers and libraries. It's a really lovely alchemy there.
Yeah, it is. And Ashgrove is a really fantastic library. We actually have a couple of authors that write in Ashgrove Library. So it's a local to Frances Whiting. So she does a bit of writing and has set one of her books there, which is really, we absolutely love that. So we do have a few authors that use our libraries to write their books, and I'd love to see more of that.
Oh, that's wonderful. Actually, I read Frances's lovely book. I think that was just a beautiful story, and she uses the library as a setting as well. So yeah. I think that's always nice when you pick up a book that's got a bit of a library subplot or mention in there. It really is quite special, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Lovely. Now, I wanted to know what's happening in your kitchen or garden at the moment, Nadia.
Okay, sorry to disappoint because I have a black thumb. I kill everything I touch. But luckily I live in a little apartment building here, and we have some fantastic neighbours that look after a gorgeous herb garden out the back and beautiful flower garden at the front, and I just leave them to it because if I go near it, they'll die. And in my kitchen, my husband does all the cooking. So I do actually love baking, but he does all the cooking, and I occasionally wander in and say, is there anything I can do? And he says, yes, there is. You can get out of the kitchen. So that's the kind of extent. But I really love cookbooks, and I tend to keep buying cookbooks, even though I don't get to do much cooking. So one of the ones that I've bought recently, it just came out, and I think you've got it as well, Maya, is the Food Savers A to Z, which is Alex Elliott Howry and Jamie Edwards from Cornersmith Cooking School in Sydney. And this is just the most incredible cookbook because it's like a to Z of ingredients. And so if you've got something in your fridge that you're thinking, oh, what am I going to make with that asparagus? You just go to A for asparagus, and it gives you a whole lot of information about how to store asparagus so it lasts longer, what it goes well with, recipes to use it with. I actually took a curried egg sandwich to work today. So I got the recipe out of here. I was just flicking through it. I thought, curried egg sandwich, that's amazing. I haven't had one of those in years. So use the very simple recipe out of this book. But it's what we had Alex at our libraries last Friday, and she actually did a food demonstration. And I heard from the staff, she rated our staff kitchen for a couple of spices for her food demo. So I just thought, what a fantastic person and such a great book.
Yeah, fantastic. And I've found quite a few recipes whilst I've been using that one as well. There are many, many ways to use different ingredients that I hadn't even thought of. So I'm
exactly
2 thumbs up for me for that book as well. And that's out now with Murdoch Books. Now, before we go, can you tell us about Bookface Friday? Because I've so enjoyed your social media from Brisbane Libraries talking about using these great pictures. So tell us, for the people that wouldn't know what Bookface Friday is.
So Bookface Friday, I should have kind of had an example, but basically you get a book and replace whatever's on the cover, like the face on the book, as your face. So if you just go search the hashtag on Instagram, you'll find heaps of examples. And it's something that we really we loved beforehand, but during COVID our staff actually got to do a lot more social media content, because that was our way of reaching out to people while we had libraries closed. And our staff are so talented, and they're amazing, and they just came up with these incredible Bookface Fridays. And we also did recreating book covers, which we've continued as well. We have what we call a digital content group, and they actually meet regularly with our social media officer, and they have digital content bingo and come up with all these ideas, but they have so much fun with it. And I just think it shows that absolute love of books, of connecting people to books and readers. They're very talented. I look at them and just I'm gobsmacked. We had someone create a Louis Theroux one the other day, which was actually based on his jiggle rap or whatever it was, but it was just so funny. But we've got really talented staff that do an awesome job with our social media, and a great social media officer too.
Yes, and so if people want to go along with Brisbane Libraries, what's the actual user handle?
Yeah, it's Brisbane Libraries for Instagram. I think it's BNE Libraries for our, I'm just having a look, Brisbane Libraries. And you can also download our Brisbane Libraries app, and that's got everything on it. So that's a really good way to connect with us, is you get our What's On that we publish every 2 months, and you get access to our catalogue, and you get access to everything that's happening, including our social media. So download the Brisbane Libraries app and you'll have everything at your fingertips.
Fantastic. Well, it's been lovely speaking to you two tonight, Nadia. I'm so pleased you can make it onto Library Lovers. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's been fantastic.
No worries. Well, that was Nadia Ruttley there from Brisbane Libraries talking to us tonight from Queensland. So while we'll sign off now, it's been a lovely episode. I've really enjoyed having your company tonight. Thank you so much to our audience for tuning in, for your wonderful questions, for being a part of Library Lovers, and for sharing it with your friends who might be interested in tuning in once a month onto Zoom to hear all about books and baking and gardening and all things libraries. A huge thank you very much to our guests, Jane Harper, Pritchard and Nadia Ruttley. Also to event sponsors Libby Overdrive, and to libraries across Australia for being such amazing advocates for good books and supporters of Australian authors. Now, next November, November the 16th, is our Library Lovers. We will have Alice Zaslavsky as our special guest. Now, you might know Alice from ABC Radio. You might know her fantastic books. She's often in magazines. She appears on ABC TV as well. She's going to be talking to us about her new cookbook, The Joy of Better Cooking, which is out now with Murdoch Books. We're also going to be speaking to publisher Ali Watts from Penguin Random House. So we're finding out some of the interesting things that goes on inside a publisher's day-to-day life, what the job involves, what's happening in Ali's kitchen and garden. And we'll also be speaking with Paula from Marion Libraries in South Australia. So don't forget to mark November 16 into your calendars so that you can come along next month. Another reminder, we talked about it before, Ben's Book Club with Ben Hobson is on Tuesday, next Tuesday, October the 25th. And his special guest will be Petronella McGovern talking about her new novel, The Liars, which is out with Alan Unwin. I've been your host, Maya Linnell. I have loved spending this evening with you. Stay warm, stay well, and read more books.